Tragedy of Macbeth, starring Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, written for the screen by Joel Cohen. I can't say it was written by Joel Cohen because it was originally written by William Shakespeare. If you haven't guessed by the title, it's based off the story Macbeth, which William Shakespeare wrote many, many years ago. I was very curious about this movie, and if you want to check the movie out, you can watch it on Apple TV Plus if you have a subscription to that. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to be reviewing this week because I knew I was going to watch this film, and I also watched The Tender Bar on Amazon Prime starring Ben Affleck, and I left it up to the listeners. I've put a poll on Twitter and Instagram, and you, the listeners, spoke out, and you chose The Tragedy of Macbeth. So that's why I'm talking about that movie this week. I was very curious about it because I read Macbeth when I was in college. I think my sophomore year I read it. I read it early on in college, so it's been quite a while. But I remembered the very basic elements of the story. Not the details by any means, but just in general what it was about. So I had a little bit of a preconceived notion of it going in, and I didn't read too much about it. I just knew that Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand were in it, and Joel Cohen wrote the screenplay and also directed this movie without his brother, the first time that that's happened. Because those two have been joined at the hip their entire career and have made some great movies. So I was curious to see how he would fare on his own. And really just how detailed would they go into it? Like, would the dialogue be updated for modern audiences, or would it be in that what's called Shakespearean English? Well, it is in the Shakespearean English, as I call it, where I can't even really give an example of it, but if you've read Shakespeare, you know what I mean. It's a little bit jarring in the way that at times you don't really know what the characters are saying, because it is pretty much a straight up adaptation of Macbeth. Denzel Washington plays King Macbeth, Frances McDormand plays Lady Macbeth. The two of them are really the ones who carry this movie, and there's a lot to unpack with this as far as what I like about it, because surprisingly there was more that I liked about it than what I don't like. I love the performances by the two of them. Like, you put one or both in a movie and you're going to get good performances. Like, there's not a ton of sure things when it comes to acting, but I think these two are. So I knew that the acting was going to be good. They were going to carry the story, and it was going to be great on that aspect. I really dug a couple of different specific points, and these are, we'll call them spoilers, but if you've read Macbeth, then you know what happens in the story. So we'll just say that we're getting into spoilers for the movie. There's two scenes in particular, one with Denzel and one with Frances McDormand. When they're carrying out the murders, murdering the king, and they also murder some other members of the cast as well. There's a scene when Macbeth is really like contemplating those first series of murders, and you can really start to see his sanity slip, and it keeps going throughout the course of the story. And then with Lady Macbeth basically calling on the spirits to give her the means and the will to carry out murder, I thought was really powerful to watch by both of them. And you see the constant descent into madness that Macbeth has after he murders the king and murders other members of his court or whatever. It was really powerful to watch. And again, I wasn't surprised, but I'm almost always in awe of Denzel Washington when I watch him act, because I truly think he's one of the best actors on the planet. Same thing with Frances McDormand. But I also have to give it up to Catherine Hunter, who plays the three witches who convince Macbeth that he's going to become King of Scotland. She stole every scene that she was in, from, the facial expressions, the mannerisms, and just the way she carried herself in every scene that she was in. It just made you snap at attention when she was on screen. And that was also carried with one of the other elements that I liked about it. And I also forgot to mention, this is an A24 film. So it was going to have that kind of an artsy type of feel to it. The movie's in black and white, which I think really adds to it. But the set design, they carried an almost minimalist approach, being that the walls are barren, everything seems so empty, and the use of fog and mist, in transitions between scenes, and sometimes fog even being the background, it really draws the attention to the characters. And I thought that was a brilliant use of not having a lot of scenery. The whole story felt very closed in and intimate and almost empty in a way. Your focus was on the characters, whether it was two or more. You weren't drawn in by, fancy special effects, just a bunch of actors doing what they're paid to do and doing what they love to do. So I loved, the set use. Sometimes the contrast of light I thought was really cool, with having like a dark interior, but you have a set of light coming in through a window, focusing in on a character, and it was almost like graphic novel. If you've read comic books or graphic novels, you know what I'm talking about. It had that really chilling effect, and it was just really, really well done. And I will say the thing that I didn't really like, and this is just because I'm not as familiar with Shakespeare, the dialogue was hard to follow in some aspects, because at times you don't really know what the characters are saying. But through mainly Denzel and Frances McDormand, their performances are compelling enough that you can look past it in a way. So I would watch it just for those two alone. I don't really want to give it a number score, but I would probably put it in like the 7.5 range if you're going to force me to give a number score. Oh, I also like Carter Burwell's score quite a bit, especially the song they used for the end credits was awesome. And I love that the score was there, but it was very subtle. Like, it didn't overtake the dialogue, or it didn't take away from any of the scenery or any of the scenes. You didn't feel like it was really about the music. It was there to accent what was going on. It was there to really enhance the performances. So if you're a fan of just straight up acting, I would highly recommend this movie. I'd love to talk with someone who's a fan of Shakespeare who has seen this movie to hear what they thought of it, because I think I would like it more if I were a fan of Shakespeare. But if you're not a fan, I would still recommend it just to see the performances of Denzel and Frances. Not pretty, but really good movie. I really liked it. As I mentioned, it's on Apple TV Plus. Would highly recommend it. It's one of the better acting jobs than I've seen in quite some time. Because as I said, you get two for sure things in your lead performances. So I'm curious as to how many Oscar nominations this is going to get, because I can see Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand being nominated for Best Actor and Actress. Joel Coen will probably be nominated for Best Director. I don't think it will be nominated for Best Screenplay because it's essentially rewriting Shakespeare. So I don't see that. I don't know if it'll get Best Score. Maybe Best Sound Design might work too, because I even feel like the sound effects were leveled very well in comparison to the dialogue and the music, because a problem I have with some movies is that the dialogue is too low and the effects, like sound effects and music, can sometimes be too loud and overtake the dialogue. That's not the case with this movie. So go get a subscription to Apple TV Plus. You can get a free trial or find some way to watch it. Highly recommend The Tragedy of Macbeth.